She didn't type it in anger. That's the part people don't understand. She typed it slowly. Carefully. Like she wanted every word to land exactly where it would hurt the most. You are stupid. I can see it in the photo. I remember the exact moment I read it. Standing in the middle of a grocery store aisle, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, my phone vibrating in my hand like it was alive. Carts rolled past me. A kid cried somewhere nearby. Life kept moving, completely unaware that, for me, everything had just stopped. Because in that moment, it wasn't about shampoo anymore. It was about humiliation. It was about someone deciding, in a split second, that I was beneath them. That my job made me disposable. That I was someone they could speak to however they wanted, without consequences. And the scariest part? She truly believed nothing would happen. She believed she could say whatever she wanted. And still get what she wanted. She believed wrong. Because by the end of this story, she wouldn't just lose her order. She would lose her reputation. Her access. And the sense of power she'd built her entire personality around. And I wouldn't have to raise my voice once. Before we go any further, let me ask you something. Have you ever been spoken to like you were less than? Just because of the job you were doing? Have you ever swallowed your anger, forced a polite reply, and walked away replaying the insult in your head for hours, or even days? If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. And if you've ever wished, even quietly, that the person who disrespected you would finally face real consequences, then take a second right now. Hit like. Subscribe to The Telling. Because what you're about to hear isn't just a revenge story. It's about what happens when someone who's used to abusing service workers finally meets a situation they can't bully their way out of. It's about power, who really has it, and who only thinks they do. And it's about a lesson people. She didn't type it in a rush. She typed it deliberately, carefully, as if each keystroke was meant to land like a hammer. You are stupid. I can see it in the photo. I froze. The words hovered on my screen like smoke, impossible to ignore. My body betrayed me before my mind could catch up, chest tightening, stomach dropping, throat constricting. I was standing mid-aisle in a grocery store, fluorescent lights buzzing, a faint smell of detergent and cardboard lingering in the air. Shoppers moved past me, oblivious. A child cried somewhere in the distance. Life carried on around me, but for a split second, everything else had vanished. Because at that moment, it wasn't about shampoo anymore. It was about power. It was about control. It was about someone who believed they could diminish me simply because I was doing my job. I tried to breathe, tried to steady my hands. Tried to remember the mantra every service worker knows: remain professional, stay calm, don't let them win. But it wasn't that easy. Every nerve in my body screamed. My palms were clammy, my stomach churned. I could almost feel the words leaping off the screen and pressing against me, shaping themselves into a physical weight. Most people would have stopped there. Deleted the message. Rolled their eyes. Moved on. But for some reason, call it instinct, call it anger, call it a deep-seated refusal to be belittled, I couldn't. I stared at the screen, reading the words over and over. My mind replayed every interaction that led to this, the polite initial message, my clear explanation, the small attempts at offering solutions. And still, she had chosen to reduce me to a single, cruel sentence. This was the breaking point. I realized she didn't care about the product, the stock, or the inconvenience. She didn't want conditioner, she wanted someone to blame. She wanted to assert superiority over someone she assumed was beneath her. And in that realization, something inside me shifted. I understood that if I reacted the way she expected, if I apologized, argued, or cowered, I would be handing her the victory she craved. Instead, I did something I had never done before. I steadied my hands, took a deep breath, and read her words one last time before typing my response, not with fear, not with anger, but with precision. I would remain professional, but I would also set the stage for a response she wouldn't see coming. Because the truth was simple, she had underestimated me. She had assumed that just because I was the help would be powerless. And she was about to find out just how wrong she was. At that moment, in that crowded, buzzing grocery store, with her insults glowing on my phone screen, I made a silent promise to myself. I would not let this moment define me. I would not be diminished. And in the days to come, she would learn a lesson she would never forget. Before we dive further, let me give you some context. You see, I was not just a shopper. Not in the way most people think of it. I wasn't managing, I wasn't supervising, and I certainly wasn't someone with authority. I was doing a job that looked simple from the outside, walking aisles, grabbing products, communicating with customers. That's it. But anyone who has ever worked in retail, delivery, or service knows the truth. It's never that simple. Every single interaction is under scrutiny. Every message, every action, every word typed or spoken is logged. And one bad review? It can push you down the algorithm, meaning fewer orders, less money, and higher stress. You learn quickly that the work isn't about products or efficiency. It's about surviving the scrutiny, surviving the judgment, surviving the people who see your role as less than human. And some customers, like her, know that too. They thrive on it. They find satisfaction in asserting superiority over someone they believe can't fight back. They see a person doing a job and immediately rank them beneath themselves. They test boundaries, push buttons, and take pleasure in watching you squirm. I had seen it before. Small insults, veiled threats, passive-aggressive complaints. But nothing prepared me for the sheer audacity of what she just wrote. And in that moment, it hit me. This was not a momentary lapse. This wasn't a customer having a bad day. This was deliberate. This was malicious. The words reverberated through me, "You are stupid." I can see it in the photo. It wasn't just an insult. It was a declaration. A belief. That because of my job, I was lesser. That because I served others, I had no right to dignity. And as I stood there in the aisle, clutching my phone, I realized something else. She thought she had control. She thought she could humiliate me, and nothing would happen in return. That assumption, was her fatal mistake. Because for the first time in my service career, I wasn't going to shrink. I wasn't going to apologize for something that wasn't my fault. I wasn't going to swallow the humiliation. I would respond. Not in anger. Not in fear. But with quiet, calculated resolve. Because I realized something most people never grasp until it's too late. People who think they can treat the help like dirt are betting that you're powerless. And if you aren't, you become the last thing they expect. You become the consequence. And from that moment on, I knew she was about to learn exactly what happens when you push someone too far. Now let me break something down for you, because this part is crucial. People see this job and assume it's simple. Just walk around and pick up stuff, they say. It's easy work. Easy? Ha. They have no idea. This job isn't about walking aisles. It's about anticipating every possible complication, every possible complaint, and being ready to manage it without losing your composure. It's about maintaining professionalism while your heart pounds and your body shakes because someone is verbally attacking you over something entirely out of your control. It's about being measured while people throw entitlement at you like knives. Every interaction matters. Every message you send, every call you take, every action you make is scrutinized, logged, and potentially used against you. One bad review could cost you income. One bad interaction could ruin your day. One person thinking they're better than you could break your confidence for weeks. And here's the thing, she knew this. She wasn't just rude. She was calculated. She picked a target who had to respond, who had to stay professional, who had to remain polite despite the insult. Because if I reacted, she would win. If I argued or lashed out, she could claim injustice. She thought she had all the power. And that's what made her so dangerous. But here's the twist she didn't anticipate. I understood the rules of the game too. I knew her type. I knew her expectations. And I knew that real power doesn't come from insults or entitlement. Real power comes from control. Control over your reaction. Control over the situation. Control over the outcome. So while she believed she was asserting dominance, I was quietly plotting a countermove. Because in any game of psychological chess, the opponent who underestimates you is the one who loses first. That was the lesson I carried with me as I walked toward the shampoo aisle, prepared to face not just a missing product, but the storm of entitlement she had already begun brewing. And little did she know, the storm was coming, and it wasn't one she would weather. The order popped up mid-shift. A luxury shampoo and conditioner set, the kind that costs more than most people spend on groceries in a week. I went straight to the aisle, confident, practiced. The shampoo? Right there, gleaming on the shelf. Perfect. Easy. Done. Then I reached for the conditioner. And that's when reality hit. Empty. Gone. Not just the shelf I expected, the whole section. I scanned nearby shelves, the backroom inventory on my app, even double-checked the database to make sure I wasn't missing something. Nothing. Out of stock. I messaged her. Hi. Just letting you know the conditioner is currently unavailable. Would you like a substitute or a refund? Her reply came instantly. You are stupid. I can see it in the photo. Instantly, that sinking feeling returned, only stronger. My chest tightened, stomach twisted, and heat surged through my face. That familiar, painful ache of being devalued washed over me. My body wanted to react, to lash out, to defend myself. But my mind had learned long ago that the immediate reaction is often the wrong one. So I paused. I breathed. I typed carefully, keeping my voice calm. I understand the confusion, but the photo reflects the brand, not current shelf stock. Unfortunately, the conditioner is unavailable. And then it escalated. Stop lying. Do your job properly. It wasn't about lying. It wasn't about the conditioner. It was about control. She wanted dominance. She wanted to prove that I was beneath her, a disposable cog in her convenience-driven life. And she assumed she could assert it without consequence. I realized she had no intention of resolving anything. She wanted an outlet for her rage, a way to make someone else pay for her frustrations. And I was that someone. At that moment, for the first time, I didn't feel fear or guilt. I felt clarity. She had underestimated me. She had assumed because of my job, my lack of authority, and my professional restraint, I was powerless. And that assumption? That was her fatal mistake. I didn't need to respond in anger. I didn't need to argue or fight. I simply needed to remember one truth. People who act entitled often have the illusion of power, and illusions can be shattered quietly, elegantly, and irreversibly. That's when I made the decision that would change everything. Not impulsively, not recklessly, but with a calm certainty I'd never felt before. She was about to find out that treating someone as less than has consequences. Consequences she could not imagine. I pocketed my phone, focused on the rest of my shift, and began to form a plan. Because this wasn't just an order anymore. This was a lesson, one she wouldn't forget. I still remember the first sting. That single phrase, that crushing sentence. You are stupid. I can see it in the photo. It wasn't just an insult, it was a weapon. A precise, cold, surgical strike aimed directly at my self-respect. My chest tightened. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. My hands shook. I felt smaller, weaker, and, for the first time in a long time, powerless. Most people would have immediately deleted the message, shook it off, and moved on. But service workers know that even a small insult lingers. It echoes. It embeds itself in your mind. You replay it over and over, questioning your competence, your patience, even your humanity. I tried to maintain composure. I typed a calm response, explaining the stock issue and offering alternatives. I understand the confusion, but the photo reflects the brand, not current shelf stock. Unfortunately, the conditioner is unavailable. Her reply was merciless. Short. Sharp. Designed to wound. Stop lying. Do your job properly. And then came the vile word, the one she knew would humiliate. In that instant, every fiber of my being fought against instinct. The instinct that told me to bow, apologize, or submit. The instinct that told me to absorb the insult silently. But this time, instinct lost. Clarity took over. I realized she didn't want a solution. She didn't care about the conditioner. She wanted to dominate, to belittle, to assert superiority. I could either let her win or respond on my own terms. And I chose the latter. The first insult always hits hardest because it breaks something intangible. It forces you to decide whether you will remain small or fight back. And as much as I had endured before, I knew that this time, I would not back down. I closed my eyes, imagined the rest of my shift, the long walk to my car, the quiet satisfaction of turning the tables. I told myself, she has no idea what's coming. She thinks she controls this moment, but she's wrong. And with that, a plan began to form. Quiet. Precise. Satisfying. She would learn that the world doesn't bend for entitlement. That no one is untouchable. That consequences are always waiting, sometimes quietly, sometimes subtly, and sometimes in ways they could never anticipate. This was not about revenge for anger's sake. It was about justice. And justice, I realized, can be beautiful when it's patient and deliberate. The internal war began almost immediately after the exchange. Part of me wanted to retreat, to forget this interaction and continue my shift without incident. That voice whispered, "It's just one customer. Don't make a scene. Keep your composure." Another part, however, burned with indignation. It screamed, "She can't talk to you like this. You're not powerless. She's wrong. She must pay for this." That's the paradox of service work. You are constantly balancing patience and pride, civility and self-preservation. One wrong move, one misstep, and your professional world could crumble. But ignoring injustice has its own cost. It eats at you quietly, eroding your confidence and leaving a lingering bitterness. As I stood in that aisle, phone in hand, I felt both pressures collide. My body was tense. My palms sweaty. My stomach a tight knot. I wanted to strike back, but I couldn't in that moment. I had to think. I had to plan. And as the adrenaline subsided, clarity emerged. This wasn't just a personal affront. This was a moral challenge. She had assumed I would bend to her will because she was entitled, aggressive, and arrogant. That assumption had given her temporary satisfaction. But it also revealed a critical weakness. She underestimated me. And that weakness would become her undoing. I could feel a shift in myself, a new kind of calm, bordering on exhilaration. I realized that I had the power to take control without compromising my professionalism. I could create a situation in which the consequences of her arrogance were unavoidable, and yet, she wouldn't even know it was coming until it hit. That internal war wasn't about rage anymore. It was about patience, strategy, and the deep, almost forbidden satisfaction of knowing I could tip the scales in my favor without breaking the rules. It was intoxicating. And in that moment, I silently promised myself something. She would not leave this encounter unscathed. She would learn, in a way that would stick forever, that power does not always reside in the loudest voice, the deepest pocket, or the harshest insult. Sometimes, it resides in the quiet, calculated resolve of someone who has been pushed too far. I clipped my last items for the order, feeling the plan solidify in my mind. She thought she had the upper hand. But the next few days, the next few moves, would reveal a very different truth. Then it hit me. This wasn't about shampoo. This wasn't about a missing product. This was about her need to dominate, to feel superior, to make someone else small. And I realized something crucial. She only had power if I let her. I took a breath, feeling the tension in my chest ease slightly. My fingers hovered over the phone, poised to reply calmly, but instead, I decided on silence. A small smile tugged at the corner of my mouth, not smug, not cruel, just aware. I had a choice: continue letting her arrogance dictate my day, or reclaim control. I chose control. For the first time, I felt free. Free from fear, free from humiliation, free from the trap she had set. That freedom, fleeting as it was, ignited something inside me, a quiet determination that she would face consequences she didn't see coming. I canceled the order. Officially. Professionally. Clean. But as I walked past the aisles, a new idea took root. Something petty, satisfying, harmless, perfect. I turned into the toy aisle, scanned the bright boxes, the chaos of colors, the disorder that only children could create. Then I knelt down. The 2 bottles of expensive shampoo? Gone. Hidden behind Legos, tucked out of sight, invisible to anyone who didn't look closely. It wasn't illegal. It wasn't aggressive. It was quiet. Subtle. And it was hers waiting for the next time she tried to assert control. I left the aisle, walked to the checkout, and felt something strange. Satisfaction? Relief? I wasn't sure. But I knew one thing: she had no idea what had just happened. And she would pay for underestimating me. Clocking out, I pushed the cart toward the car. The world moved normally around me. People chatted, carts rattled, kids screamed in the distance. But I felt different. Lighter. Stronger. A sense of quiet triumph lingered in my chest, subtle but undeniable. This wasn't about revenge yet. Not fully. This was about reclaiming my dignity, reclaiming control, and refusing to let her arrogance dominate my day. And deep down, I knew the storm wasn't over. Her review, her messages, the inevitable fallout, they were coming. And when they did, she would find out just how much power she had truly underestimated. Because I wasn't the same person she insulted at the beginning of the day. I had shifted. And everything was about to change. It happened faster than I expected. The review notification popped up while I was halfway home. 1 star. No hesitation. No nuance. Just venom. She wrote exactly what I knew she would. That I was incompetent. That I was lazy. That I clearly didn't know how to do my job. And then came the lie. She claimed I never looked for the item. That I canceled out of spite. That I was rude. Reading it, I felt that familiar tightening in my chest, but it didn't last. Because this time, I was ready. I had screenshots. Time stamps. Her exact words. Every insult. Every escalation. Every moment she revealed who she really was. She thought reviews were weapons. She didn't realize they were also records. And records have a way of telling the truth, especially when someone is careless enough to document their own cruelty. I didn't respond publicly. That's what shocked her the most. No apology. No defensive reply. No emotional explanation begging for mercy. Just silence. Because silence forces people to sit with themselves. And people like her hate that. I forwarded everything through the proper channels. Calm. Professional. Factual. No emotions. No accusations. Just evidence. And then I waited. Waiting is powerful when you know the outcome is no longer in your opponent's hands. Somewhere out there, she was refreshing her screen. Waiting for a reaction. Waiting to feel important again. But instead, the system began asking her questions. And suddenly, the balance shifted. The email arrived the next morning. Short. Formal. Decisive. After reviewing the interaction, they sided with me. The review was removed. Her account was flagged. Repeated behavior. Pattern of abuse. That phrase stuck with me. Pattern. Because people like her don't explode once. They repeat. And eventually, repetition becomes evidence. She didn't lose access because of me. She lost it because she'd done this before, and assumed she'd always get away with it. I closed the email and sat there quietly for a moment. No cheering. No victory speech. Just relief. Because justice, when it's quiet and procedural, feels different than revenge. It doesn't burn hot. It settles. And that's when I realized. This story wasn't over yet. Because what she did next made everything public. Then it happened. I posted a screenshot of her review and our conversation on social media, carefully, factually, without embellishment. The response was immediate. Likes. Shares. Comments. Outrage. People rallied around me, but it wasn't just sympathy, it was collective validation. They saw her behavior for what it truly was, entitlement, cruelty, and a sense of invincibility. Within hours, the post went viral. Strangers reached out. Other workers shared similar stories. The narrative wasn't about me alone, it was about everyone who had ever been belittled for simply doing their job. And she? She didn't anticipate the public eye. She didn't anticipate people holding her accountable. Her insults, meant to harm me, were now the very evidence that exposed her behavior. Her reputation? Tarnished. Her arrogance? Shattered. All without me raising my voice. All without confrontation. This was the sweet, quiet satisfaction of justice delivered, not impulsively, not vindicatively, but with precision. Then, the store manager reached out. Formal, polite, apologetic. They had reviewed the interaction, read the messages, and investigated the review. "Thank you for bringing this to our attention," the manager wrote. "We are sorry for your experience. You were professional throughout, and we want to offer a gift card and a month of free shopping as an apology for the inconvenience." I paused. Not for shock, but for realization. The very system that she thought was powerless was now affirming my dignity. I had not only protected myself, but I had forced recognition for every service worker who had ever been dismissed or insulted. And the customer? Banned. Her control stripped, her arrogance dismantled, her entitlement exposed. I felt a quiet, profound satisfaction, like standing in the sun after a long, dark storm. Looking back, the lesson is simple: never underestimate someone you try to demean. She thought she had all the power. She thought she could belittle me with words, manipulate the system, and walk away unscathed. She was wrong. I didn't seek revenge for the thrill. I sought justice. I sought to reclaim control, dignity, and professional respect. And in doing so, I realized something universal. Life rewards patience, strategy, and composure. Life punishes arrogance, entitlement, and cruelty. The customer learned a lesson, yes, but the real reward was personal. The satisfaction of standing up for oneself. The validation that being treated like less than does not define your worth. And the truth? When you handle injustice with patience and precision, revenge becomes something quietly beautiful. Not loud. Not chaotic. But inevitable. So, if you've ever been underestimated, dismissed, or disrespected, remember, the universe has a way of balancing the scales. And sometimes, the sweetest victories are the ones delivered silently, elegantly, and unmistakably. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button. Share your experiences in the comments. What's the most satisfying way you've ever reclaimed control? And subscribe to The Telling for more stories of justice, strategy, and the quiet power of standing your ground. Because power doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it waits. Until the perfect moment to strike.